Ito must have gotten wind of how poorly the headhunting job went. He made some time between jobs for us to see each other. We had a few little park dates. I was starting to think whatever we had was getting a bit more serious than he wanted to admit. As long as I didn't say that thought out loud, I was convinced things would stay the same. One of the park dates was crashed by a gremlin of a creature that I regretted taming. "I have a job for you, human," April shouted with her hands on her hips. She had done so in the middle of a busy path. I rolled my eyes and ignored the stares directed our way. I was going to leave soon. "Go on. Call me if you need help or if anything happens," Ito offered. I squeezed his hand before he left, wishing I was confident enough to kiss him publicly. April waited until he left to give me the rundown of the day. She had been given a job to investigate a ghost town that had been hit by a sudden burst of odd weather. She proudly stated she had no desire to do such a boring task, but the black collar forced her to at least go to the location. She wanted to go with me, stay long enough for the color to let her go, and let me deal with the rest of the work. At least she offered to pay me half of what she would earn. I had nothing else going on, and half was better than nothing. I agreed. We used a key on a public washroom door to be transported to the abandoned town in the middle of a desert. Those magic doorways were useful. The entire corporation might not be able to operate without them. I started to carry a key that would connect me directly to the office. It was a one-use item, and they took it out of my pay to get another one made, so I rarely used my own key, and just followed any agents back through the doorways they created. I've learned how to be cheap over the years of working this job. "Are you dating that agent?" April said, not looking in my direction. She kicked at a rotten board in the middle of the road. It had rained recently, so we stood ankle-deep in mud. "Sorta," I admitted to her. She found a large black beetle rushing away after she moved its hiding spot. I watched her reach down to pluck it from the ground, and toss it into her mouth. The crunching sound made my skin crawl. She was oddly quiet. I don't think she had the best relationship with the corporation, considering she had been forced to work for them. "Sorta isn't a good answer. It should be a yes," she finally said. "Sorta is the best you get with agents. They don't like to date because of their job." I shrugged. She frowned, and I felt her judging me. She stood up and gave my shin a swift kick, leaving behind a mud stain. "I don't like people who do things halfway. It's either a yes or a no," she said stubbornly. Was I doing things halfway with him? This kind of relationship protected the both of us. Ito wasn't the only one risking his life every time he worked. I had been extremely lucky lately, and stayed alive. I wanted him to be able to easily move on whenever my luck ran out. April derailed my thought when she started to dig in the mud. A large storm had blown through, and scattered parts of the old wooden building into the road. I saw shards of glass and trash mixed in the dirt. I knew she healed fast, but I didn't want her cutting herself. "April, sweetie, playing some cleaner mud?" I asked her. She gave me a raised eyebrow, not understanding what I meant. I pointed to a puddle she could splash in so I could walk around looking the place over. It wasn't a very big town. I counted 9.5 buildings along the road. A sign had been put up for visitors to read about the history. There was no gift shop or anyone around. I'd never heard of this ghost town, and it wasn't anywhere near another city. From the looks of things, the buildings had been left to rot with only a handful of visitors every year. The land wasn't worth anything, so no one bothered tearing down the half-rotten town. Somewhere like this was perfect for creatures to make their home, away from prying eyes and with the occasional victim wandering right into their hunting grounds. If someone died out here, it would be easy to say they got lost and died of exposure. April ambushed me from behind. She wrapped me in a tight hug, causing wet mud to seep into my clothing. At least I already needed to do laundry that night. "This place is boring," she complained. "I don't know. I think it's neat. According to this, the town was flooded by a freak storm and abandoned like 100 years ago. Don't you think it's impressive the buildings have stayed here for that long? Her expression showed she was, in fact, not impressed. April could have been as old as this town. 100 years is nothing to some creatures. I realized I didn't know that much about her. I wasn't even sure what kind of creature she might be. There were so many different species out there, it was hard to keep track. Most don't even have names humans could pronounce. It was a bit rude to ask her. You never ask a woman her age, and you never ask a supernatural creature what they are. Do you have any clues on why we would have been called here to look around? I asked her, trying to get back on track. She shook her head, distracted again by some tasty bugs. What did the email say? I pressed. I don't know, I just skimmed it. Just the normal stuff. A few people turning up dead and all that. She replied in a not very helpful manner. A few? How many were a few? And how did they die? Didn't she first mention weird weather? And now we were dealing with a few deaths? April noticed my crossed arms and rolled her eyes. Some witnesses say they left when they saw a storm rolling in, even though it rarely rains here. Their friends stayed behind and were found dead with water in their lungs. But it was bone dry around the bodies. Nothing too interesting. Yes, when you worked with supernatural creatures, something like 2 people drowning in the middle of a desert wouldn't be interesting. Unlike April, who only cared about her next snack or a fun fight, I wanted to get to the bottom of what really happened here. We didn't have that many leads, aside from the fact that it looked like it had rained here recently. I closed my eyes and opened the left one to look around the area more carefully. I wasn't sure what I was looking for. April watched me, interested in my odd actions. I saw her magic moving in a healthy flow. The color looked familiar. I wanted to know where I had seen something like it before, but needed to focus on solving a different mystery. Magic left traces. If the storm was caused by a spell, some signs of one would be left behind. I couldn't make sense of what I saw for a few seconds. Bright, thin lines ran through the ground under our feet. I bent down low, touching the ground, trying to sense the hints of power. Magic leaks from living things, and builds up in areas and with a certain flow. Since we were in a desert, the flow should have been far less than what I was seeing. It appeared like a spider web of magic. Looking at the glowing threads of light hurt my eye, so I shook my head, clearing my sight. Does this place feel any different to you? I asked April, but she didn't seem to know what I was talking about. April had never been in a place lacking magic. Due to her work, she only went to places full of it. We didn't have time to think through the answer at that moment. The wind started to pick up, carrying an unnatural chill. The back of my neck prickled, my body sensing something getting closer. April got back to her feet, claws out, ready to face the threat. Her sundress blew in the constant wind. Thunder boomed overhead, so loud I needed to cover my ears. The world turned gray as heavy raindrops fell hard to the ground. April moved in front of me, defending from a new threat. Looking up, I saw a figure stumbling out from behind one of the wooden buildings. It had been a human once. The body dried out, the skin clinging to each bone. Sunken, dark eyes settled in our direction. A shot of fear stabbed my heart. I faced a lot of monsters, and yet, this one terrified me to the core. My feet were glued to the ground, with the wind picking up, doing its best to sweep us away. The rain hit the walking corpse. The water was absorbed into the dried flesh. I didn't need my sight to know the body was carrying a lot of magic, enough to create the storm above us. April charged forward, ready to go feral, but her feet slipped in the mud. She found it impossible to stay standing, with the wind and rain beating her down. Each burst of wind took away my breath. I raised my hands over my face, trying to protect it. The raindrops were so large they hurt when they slammed into my body. I couldn't get any air. When I tried breathing, I only choked down rainwater. Dread came to my mind, with the realization that I was going to drown standing in this storm. I needed to think of a plan to save us. Forcing my eyes open, I followed the pathway of magic, trying to see anything useful. To my shock, the spiderweb trails of magic all led to the corpse. What was this thing? Had it been created by someone else? Or was it just a person that refused to pass on? There were too many threads for me to cut on my own. I wasn't sure if April could remove the threads of magic. Even if she could, we didn't have the time. I soon found myself sputtering and coughing, my chest burning in pain. Within a few minutes, I became useless. An arm grabbed my waist and I was dragged away. I blacked out for a minute or two. When I came to, April was pressing hard on my chest, trying to get me to cough up the water that had gotten into my lungs. I rolled over, puking out what felt like a gallon of water onto the dirt floor. When I recovered, I looked around the room. April had dragged us inside an old jailhouse cell and closed the bars behind her. That was a smart move. Iron dulled magic and supernatural creatures' senses. The storm still raged on outside, beating hard on the building. For now, we were safe to recover and think of a plan. April walked over to the far wall and sat against it. She tucked her knees to her chest, wringing out water from her dress. She looked like a drowned rat. I didn't look much better. "What is that thing?" she asked softly. "Death," I answered after a few moments. She frowned at the dramatic answer. It was the truth, though. That thing outside was nothing but death itself. It wanted to end life in the same way it had been ended. I was lost in thought, trying to figure out what we were facing and a way to beat it. I was scared as hell, but also scared for April. Her strengths were ripping and tearing. We couldn't even get close to this enemy. I started to draw lines on the dirt floor, thinking through my theory. "I think there's a ley line around here," I muttered to myself. "A what?" April asked. I raised my head, not understanding how she didn't know what I was talking about. All creatures should be aware of the magic rivers running through the planet. "You know, magic veins," I explained. "Oh, we call them..." She made clicking and chirping noises that reminded me of a grasshopper. It made sense that her species had a different name for ley lines. I didn't even like calling them that myself, but there wasn't an agreed term for them between all creatures. "Right, one of those. I think the corpse outside was a person who died from the flood that destroyed the town 100 years ago. Their body must have gotten swept away and never found. They were either a supernatural creature or a human with good magic control. Over the years, the body collected magic and finally became what we saw." I explained to her, thinking my theory made sense. If it's near a ley line, then why wait until now? If it can feed from the magic, then it's working with a nearly bottomless source, April said. I nodded at her question. I hated to think about how much magic we were dealing with. If it was really feeding from a magic river, then I don't know of a single person who was strong enough to deal with that much power. Ley lines move and shift over the years in some places. It must have been slowly collecting magic, then got a burst of it all at once when the river moved close enough. April looked surprised over that information. She grew up in a forest, or an area where the lines don't move, or are big enough to still cover the area if they shifted. Some creatures weren't aware that magic drifted from place to place. "We need to leave. You have an office key, right? Use the door and let's go." This time, I was surprised by her words. I never would have thought she would be the one asking us to abandon a fight. Our enemy was far too much for us. Leaving would be smart, and April rarely had smart ideas. You can't create a doorway through iron. Besides, if this is an undead, I just need to listen to their soul. If we can figure out the grudge it holds, then maybe we can... She suddenly stood up and stomped her foot in the dirt. For a moment, she looked like a child. No, you're human. That's too much for you. Draw a damn door and let's get out of here. She half shouted, face turning pink from being upset. I shook my head, trying to calm her down from the outburst. You know supernatural creatures have issues dealing with the dead and ghosts, right? I'm better suited for this because I'm human. It would take ages for the agents who do put the dead to rest to come here. They're so swamped with other work. She was just getting more frustrated with my words. She sat back down, extremely grumpy. No one ever listens to me, or cares about my feelings, she muttered. Where did that come from? The sounds of the storm got louder. If we did want to make a door out of here, it would be best to wait until the monster outside calmed down a little. If it sensed the door and attacked it before we both got through, then I hated to think of what would happen to us if the connection was broken halfway. Let's wait here for a little bit and think things through. She nodded, tucking her knees back up to rest her chin on them. If I didn't know there was an undead creature outside waiting to kill us, then listening to the storm outside might have been enjoyable. I wasn't sure how much time passed by. I considered calling for help, but of course there was too much magic in the air for my phone to work. Or it got too wet. Do you know about the original Silver King? April asked in a low voice that didn't suit her. There are a lot of different versions of the story. What one do you know? I asked her. I sat down next to her, half expecting her to push me away. She wouldn't look in my direction, but she didn't move away either. I heard that in the first world, he created all the supernatural creatures. They were beasts that killed and ate humans without a care. Then the original king fell in love with a human. He wanted his creations to know the same feeling, so he made it so we could all love. He did that before the human he cared about died. It hurt him. A lot. Everyone suffered because they could love, and his creations turned on him, angry over the new emotions. They killed him, but there's still a trace of him bossing us around. That was similar to the story I heard. This must have been a bedtime story April had heard 100 times before. So why mention it now? Don't you think that was cruel of him? Don't you think we would be better if we were monsters unable to love? She said in an oddly heavy tone, and glanced in my direction. I agree that a lot of pain came from supernatural creatures being able to love humans. Some days I didn't know if it was all worth it. But her words made something click in my head. I found myself looking over her and studying her features. Her dark, slightly wavy hair, dark eyes, and jawline. I'd seen them all before on someone else. Do you have an older brother named August? I asked, wondering how I didn't realize this before. Her face flushed in a rage, and she looked away again. My family died a long time ago. That confirmed it. He must have done something to her that made April disown her only family. I couldn't believe I didn't connect the dots until now. They had the same callers, the same handler, and hell, even similar names. I'll tell him you're doing alright. He adopted a cute human kid. When my phone works again, do you want to see photos? Her eyes darted back and forth, trying not to appear interested. No matter what August did in the past, she wanted to meet her new adopted nephew. I don't have any family. I don't know what you're talking about. But I do like cute photos. That felt like a step towards them getting along again. But we needed to focus on getting out of here alive. The storm outside had died down. Soon, that fact wouldn't matter. I stood up and offered my hand to April. I have a plan. Do you trust me? I asked. She chewed on her lip. I was human and weak in her eyes. I think I did something horrible to her when I forced us to become friends. She cared about me. Aside from Evie, I might be her only friend. I should have remained just a coworker to her. Even if risking my life caused her some distress, I was glad we got to know each other. She reached up to take my hand as she got to her feet. I asked her to do a small task I hoped would get us out of here alive. We stepped back outside, still afraid of what we faced, but at least we felt like we could manage this together. The corpse was waiting for us. The storm came down again, even harder than before. Soon, boards from the buildings were being blown off by the harsh winds. At least this time, I knew to hold my breath. The rainwater stung my eyes and made it impossible to see. I shut them, relying on being able to sense the mass of magic in front of us. April took a hold of my waist, and used all her strength to push against the storm, dragging us within arm's reach of the corpse. It let out a bone-chilling scream that nearly made my body shut down. My arm shot out, and I grabbed the monster, skin crawling at the dry feeling of the flesh against my palm. I wanted to connect to this person's soul, to listen to their regrets, and to let them finally rest. That wasn't possible. Whatever soul they might have had in life had been replaced by a sea of hatred so deep, I had no chance of finding the bottom. My head swam in pain and fear from facing an embodiment of death. This was no longer a person, and there was nothing we could do to stop its rage. I gasped for air, my lungs burning from holding my breath for so long. The winds weren't as strong next to the corpse. I felt a burst of magic building, the undead creature about to blow us away. We had only seconds to react before it did. April got behind it and cut a perfect large square in the dried flesh. The creature hissed, but it could easily heal the wound. It just needed to last 3 seconds. She pulled me around, and I shot my hand out to stab a key inside the new square. The key connected 2 doorways together, but there were places in the world without any nearby doors. So, if you drew a rectangle and inserted the key, it would turn that into a door. It just cost more magic to create, and we had access to a lot of magic. I pulled on the threads of magic the undead creature had been using, and poured the power into the key. My body burned with the magic, and I really thought I would be blown apart cell by cell by the burst of power. I gritted my teeth, refusing to give in. I didn't have enough control over the power pouring into the key to create a new opening. A large rip appeared, showing the corporation office behind it. I wasn't able to move, so April manhandled me inside. We hit the ground hard, rolling to a stop. The unstable connection behind us flickered and then exploded outward. We were hit by chunks of drywall and a door frame. I have no idea what the explosion was like on the other end, and if the undead monster was still in one piece. It might be able to heal from getting blown to bits. Maybe. I didn't sit up for a long time. My ears rang and my body was in so much pain. I needed a better career. I finally got my eyes open, swimming with colors I didn't think humans should normally be able to see. We were facing a blown-apart wall with an office space outside. The desks were covered with drywall dust, and a few stunned workers stared in our direction, unsure of what to do. Magic doors were one of the more stable spells. None of them had ever seen one backfire before. It was a miracle the damages were so minor, and just took out a wall. Footsteps echoed throughout the office, and a friendly face appeared. "Do you two want to explain what just happened?" Klaus asked, with a strained smile and a very sharp inhale of breath. Soon, we found ourselves sitting across from Klaus, and for the first time, I felt scared of him. They had given April a towel and a popsicle. I refused to eat or drink anything, feeling like I would get sick if I looked at food for too long. "You opened a door on a creature's back?" Klaus asked for the 3rd time. I nodded, regretting the action. "That's brutal. I've never heard of anyone doing that. Since you admitted it was your idea, I April's in the clear. I need to tell you that the protocol is to never open a doorway while fighting a creature. If there is no other option, then use a key connected to the empty offices made for that purpose, not the main office, to avoid putting our workers in danger. Since this is your first offense, I'll let you off with a warning. I nodded again, feeling the guilt in my stomach. I risked the lives of the people in this office because I selfishly wanted to save April and myself. They reasonably could have fired us both for this. That wouldn't have been so bad for April. She had been forced to work by a caller. There weren't that many choices for a supernatural creature like her, and the corporation may not feel the need to keep such an untrustworthy resource. We were dismissed and started to walk out of the room. A set of arms stopped us with a hug. Klaus had walked over to squish us affectionately together. "I'm glad you two made it back," he said, and I felt my face turn red. I didn't pull away out of embarrassment. Klaus had done this job for a long time. Who knows how many people he's seen off into the field without them all returning home. This better be a friendly hug, because this loser's taken, April pointed out. We were both released to go home. April proudly said she was going to spend the rest of the day eating pizza pockets and napping. I think she earned that. The storm still raged over the small town, tearing it apart bit by bit. It would take a long time until the magic ran out, and it would be safe enough to enter the area again. So the place was sealed away from prying human eyes. I called Ito that night. He was working and couldn't see me. That was fine. I just wanted to talk to him. He hadn't heard about what happened at the ghost town yet. If he had, I would have gotten an earful. We talked about nothing important, and I needed a simple conversation like that. I wondered if we should stop doing things halfway. I might have been ready for the pain a relationship would bring, but I wouldn't force that on him. At that moment, I was glad he just picked up the phone. Become a channel member today for early access, bonus videos, and special emojis only available to members. Check out the description below or click the join button for more info. If you'd like another way to help support the channel, please consider joining my Patreon page at patreon.com/JordanGroupHorror. As a patron, you'll get access to bonus videos and content. You'll be credited at the end of every video going forward, and if you decide to stay for 3 months, I'll name a character after you which will be featured in a Hollow's End story. Links to join the Patreon are in the description. Thanks everyone for listening. Please like, subscribe, and comment to help the channel continue to grow. And see you again next time at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hope you have a great night.